North Korea's parliament has unanimously voted to enshrine its nuclear program in the country's constitution. The move follows a speech by the country's leader, Jong Un, to the Supreme People's Assembly. Earlier this week, North Korea's ambassador to the United Nations said that his country could be pushed to nuclear war by what he called hostile threats from outside. This is how the North Korean state television announced the constitutional amendment.
김정은 동지께서는 대외사업 부문에서
Comrade Kim Jong Un urged the external affairs sector to conduct the external activities for creating conditions and environment in favor of the Korean Revolution and further promote solidarity with the nation standing against the US and the West's strategy for hegemony, while firmly adhering to the revolutionary principle and the stand of independence at the fore of the struggle of the anti-imperialist independent countries.
Let's cross to Florence Looi in Seoul. Florence, tell us a bit more about this constitutional amendment and what it actually means.
That's right. So North Korea's rubber-stamped parliament, the Supreme People's Assembly, has unanimously adopted a constitutional amendment which makes the country's nuclear policy part of its basic law, part of its constitution, really. We heard North Korean leader Kim Jong Un say in his speech that his country is going to continue to accelerate the modernization of its nuclear weapons to give it an edge in strategic deterrence. Now, North Korea considers the US as its biggest security threat, a threat to its existence, and it considers joint military drills between the US and South Korea as provocative, as preparation for war. Now, in his speech, Kim also denounced the increasingly close ties between South Korea, the US and Japan, comparing it to an Asian version of NATO, calling it the root cause of aggression. Now, last year, North Korea passed a law that also declared itself a nuclear weapons state, and it also officially enshrined into law, giving the country the right to conduct a preemptive nuclear strike if it considered itself to be under threat. So what we're seeing the North Korean parliament do this now is essentially an extension of what the North Korean parliament did last year. And the message here is very clear. North Korea has no intention of giving up its nuclear weapons program. And in fact, under Kim Jong Un's leadership, we've seen North Korea make ever more sophisticated nuclear weapons, and last year conducted a record number of missile tests.
And Florence, how concerned will the neighboring countries in the region, as well as the wider world, be about these developments?
Oh, extremely concerned, because, the threat here is not only North Korea becoming more strong militarily, developing or increasing the number of weapons in its arsenal, but also just what North Korea is doing could change the face of geopolitics in the region. We heard Kim say in his speech to Parliament, he talked about wanting his country to play a stronger role in a coalition that stands against the US in what he termed as the new Cold War. So analysts are concerned that all this could really ramp up tensions on the Korean peninsula. Remember, this also comes just a few weeks after Kim met Russian President Vladimir Putin, and that's raised concerns about these two countries drawing closer, and that cooperation perhaps extending even to militarily, which could see Pyongyang receive technical assistance for its nuclear weapons program in exchange for perhaps giving weapons to Russia. So those are real concerns, which is why we're also seeing renewed efforts on the diplomatic front. And just a few days ago, we saw senior diplomats from Japan, China and South Korea hold a meeting here in Seoul where they've agreed to revive a leaders' summit, which has been suspended since 2019. And analysts see that as an important opportunity for South Korea not only to improve relations with China, but also to bring China into the discussion on how best to deal with the nuclear threat from North Korea.
OK, thank you for that. Florence Looi there for us in Seoul.